it going? It's going. Oh, we're going. Okay, we're at the last class. We got the English text of the Kamarna Rebbe, which basically this entire book is based on. Okay, and what page is it on?
We're on page 273.
273, okay, is where we left off, okay? We were in the middle of the page, okay, and through this practice. So what we're talking about up until now, a whole new dynamic in changing the world. And basically, it comes down to the magic four-letter word called emunah, okay? I don't know if that's 4 letters, okay? It's not, okay? Emunah, which means you have to believe. What do you have to believe in? Everything is done with hashgacha. Everything is divine providence. Everything comes from God. Everything is for our ultimate, very, very best. And the thing that we're facing here now, in terms of our lives, is basically, and what the gist of this book is talking about, is a new approach to enemies or dissenters or people who are against us or people who we strive with, okay? Right? If anybody has ever had any of those. But you can even go to a lighter form of that and just anybody who's ever annoying in their lives? Anybody? No one here? Okay. Class closed. We're done. Okay.
No such thing.
Having a wedding anniversary, I'm rethinking next week.
Oh my gosh, no. Okay. So the approach really is that, of course, and we're going to see an extreme example, the most extreme example today, God willing, okay, in terms of the new approach. Because the old way, as everybody has been accustomed to and trained to, is you fight, okay? You kind of, right? You fight against them. If not, you don't curse them. If not, whatever it is, and there's a whole spectrum of different reactions. And this reaction is, no, grasshopper. They are part of you. You must elevate them. Right? They are calling to you from the depths in order that you elevate them through prayer. Okay? Prayer is the key, as we're going to see. So the first reaction is not to get reactive. Okay? Take a deep breath. When you hear about somebody saying something lashon hara about you, spreading rumors, or downright insulting you. Okay? So this is the practice. Not to go vicious, right, against the enemy, but, as he says here, seek to elevate. Okay? So it says, and through this practice, meaning praying for the enemies, praying for those people, those adversaries, through this practice of using enemies as a trigger to cultivate humility and turn to God, the evil also gets elevated through the merit it acquires from having successfully catalyzed this deepened service of Hashem's will. Okay? In other words, that rotten guy triggered you to make a prayer. You've just elevated the guy. Yeah, it doesn't seem possible. Oh, but wait. Okay. What was it? The joy of waiting. That's it. Let's not forget the joy of waiting. Okay? That's like the Israeli motto. Should put it in front of every single office. Every single office. Passport office, this office. The joy of waiting.
Joy as I was stopped by the police on my way here.
Oh my gosh, you did it.
Yes, complete joy waiting for him to find my insurance card that I couldn't find.
And did he find it?
Yeah, and I got a warning. Woohoo!
Baruch Hashem. Oh.
Well, better than a citation, right?
Okay, so this person, this adversary or adversarial situation, even a circumstance, was a catalyst for you to make a prayer, to draw close. Not only should you not respond by pushing your enemy and his delusions. Of course, that's in your mind. He's completely delusional. Of course. It's always that way. Always. Okay? Okay, so instead of pushing your enemy out of your heart, but really, no, the opposite. You should remember instead that what? This is from Hashem. This is from God. It's from God. It's from God. It's from God. right? Who do you trust? God. Are you trusting now? Okay? Or are you not trusting? Trust the process. And know that there's nothing to say before Hashem's irreproachable decision to bring this ordeal into your life. And there is no choice but to accept the trial with joy. And maybe you can make a prayer, God, please help me to accept this with joy. Yes, prayer is the key. We always will say that. Don't forget, you don't change God with prayer. You change you. And therefore, this is kind of a rough ride now. A rough circumstances or a rough situation or a rough person that I'm dealing with. Must be, I'm so coarse. It's me. There's a coarseness in me that I need to refine something within me in order to be able to accept this light in a greater way, in a more gentle way, a more comfortable way, a more pleasant way. Okay? So it must be the vessel is a little coarse and it needs a little refinement, or we'll call it, what do you do with a diamond? Polishing. That's it. It's all about the polish. Okay? It's good polishing. Turtle wax. Okay? Okay? And not only that, so you just call people turtle wax. Okay? Hello, Mr. Turtle Wax. And not only that, but even more, you should intend to uplift your enemy, as Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, who was a great sage a long time ago. Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, every evildoer that ever troubled him became a tzaddik. And if it was a non-Jew that wronged him, he became a convert. Now go figure that. Now that is some kind of wizardry, okay? Yeah, right? That's kind of wild, man, okay? Because he knew the secret that we're talking about now. The only condition for this transformation to occur through the tzaddik's prayer was that there be some trace of good in the adversary. Okay? So the first element is to believe that there's a trace of good in there. Okay? Don't automatically cut him off as being all bad, like what it says in the next paragraph. If the enemy is completely evil through and through, then when he gets elevated, in other words, you should pray anyways, that the person should do tshuva. You should pray that the person should see the light of God. The person should be connected, right? Through that prayer, when he gets elevated through the tzaddik's prayer for him, he will actually crumble. And in what the verse says, right, will be fulfilled, all the evildoers shall be scattered. Okay? They will fall into the great abyss. In other words, they'll be out of your life. Okay? We don't wish harm, God forbid, on anybody. The Arizal, they are the biggest 16th century Kabbalists, would not even curse a fly. Because it's there for a reason, to annoy you. Okay? But the annoyance is good. Thank you for God for annoying me with this. Okay? Thank you for annoying me with this. Because if it wouldn't be that, it would be something bigger. Okay? They will fall into the great abyss. And if there is any trace of good, the enemy will rise and the evil be transformed into good. And the enemy, which is called oyev in Hebrew, aleph vav yud beit, oyev, will turn into ohev, the lover. Okay? Oyev and ohev, there's just a difference there. Okay? And oyev is a yud. This is a really deep concept here. As it says in the parentheses, the yud in the word enemy turns into a hey. And with that change, the same letters now spell friend. In other words, yud is a letter, always means potential. If you'll notice, the yud is the smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and it hangs up on the top part. When they write in Hebrew the scribes write when they impress lines on the parchment. They make lines first with an awl, very little lines, because they need to make You ever draw without lines? You remember school where they would go way up or way down, and then the whole rest of your whole paper would just go and angle down or up, and then you try to fix it. They put lines, and now, interestingly enough, you would think, now for you and me, we understand the lines. You write above the lines. That's not what they do. They use the lines at the top, okay, and they hang it from the lines, Okay? So the letter Yud hangs on the top. Okay? But the idea of the Yud, it expresses that potential up high. But it's not expressed yet. The ultimate expression is a Hey. That's the full expression of the letter. Okay? So the idea really is, when you see an enemy, there's potential that needs to be expressed. Okay? You have to find the potential, as we're going to see. Okay? I might have to skip because time, ain't going to help us finish this. Okay? So in this process of finding the most spiritually in this process of finding the most spiritually productive way to deal with our enemies, the Blessed Holy One gets unified, because the Shekhinah includes everything, and there's no reality apart from God. And so, for the sake of revealing the hidden unity of the Blessed Holy One, the one who discerns the heart and instincts, we engage in this grueling work of separating out good from evil and turning them, both, whenever possible, into good. Okay, if you can take anything, Rabbi Nachman also does this. Rabbi Nachman's biggest Torah is Reish Pei Beit, which is 282. Anybody who wants the real masters who want to introduce you to, I think we might have done this, to the wisdom of Rabbi Nachman, they don't take you to the first one, they take you to 282. Law 282, it speaks about, if you see a real wicked guy, if you experience that, you have to search the good inside of him with all of your might to find that good. And when you find that actual good in him, you actually elevate. You actually elevate. If you can help her find the page here. Hey, thank you. Okay? This attempt in good faith, okay? So that's a big one, and it really needs a lot of talk. Okay, I just gave you a tip of an iceberg. Okay, but the powers of perception have the power to actually elevate, and I think even science says this about atoms, right? It's subatomic particles or quantum physics.
Yeah, the observer,
right? The observer has an effect on what is being observed.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? The attitude, right? It's a fascinating idea, right? And it actually does this. Rabbi Nachman brings this down in Law 282. That if you were to obviously use your powers of perception and see what the wicked person, and try to carve and find, and that little bit of good that he does, poof, all the molecules change, and the person becomes a different person, and you, through your powers of perception, have elevated that person. It's a very, very powerful form. It's a big rule. It's a huge, it's a whole chapter in my book coming out, who knows when, right? June 2020, okay? The way things are going now, okay? But on the power of perception, how it actually affects reality, okay? Going on in the paragraph, this attempt in good faith to redeem evil by uniting it back to its root on high will actually cause any absolute or irredeemable evil to cease and perish, as the verse reads. So all your enemies, Hashem will perish. Okay? And even those who had lost their portion in the God of Israel will again have a portion and will be turned to good, and everything will be sweetened as light is sweet to the eyes. Okay? So in other words, it's a hard one, because some things just seem in our perception outright evil. But listen, God, in his infinite wisdom and his infinite power, has the ability to turn all of those things. Okay? It might be hard for us, but in our immediate circle, we have to try to use our powers of perception as much as possible to try to elevate. Okay? Instead of degradate, elevate. So Rabbi Safran begins with a summary of the section to come. When a person finds himself confronted with people that hate him, anybody ever do that? No, right? Usually what happens is we suspect people hate us, right? Right? Then you have to really be careful. That's a whole nother parsha. I don't want to get into that. Because you have to really be aware of yourself. Don't project that people hate you, because really if you're projecting that people hate you, that really you hate them, okay? Okay. It's in the Torah itself. It's in the Torah itself. God is admonishing the people of Israel. He's saying, You guys kvetch because you said that I hate you. It's actually you who hate me. God said that. Okay? All right. So, because God says, I was always there for you. I was always loving you. But you guys, wanted to turn away. I think we learned this last week.
Yeah, we talked about
One eye on the golden calf in the wedding. Whew. Okay. So, here going again on this line. When a person finds himself confronted with people that hate him, he needs to pray that these enemies return in tshuva. Like Rabbi Meir did in the Gemara in the Talmud in Brachot. There were hoodlums in town. He was going to pray for their demise. And his wife, this such righteous woman, gave him a nudge, zetz, and says, that's not what to do. You have to pray for them to return. You have to pray for them to see the light. You have to pray for them to come back. So the rule is that when a person suffers from enemies that hate him and speak libel against him, he needs to raise those adversaries and rectify them through prayer. The prayer is that they should turn their lives to God and truth and good and repent in tshuva. Tshuva means returning. And if a person doesn't pray in this way for his enemies and instead pushes them away in anger and invokes punishment upon them, his adversaries will become more vicious and hate him still more. Thank you very much. And it's not gonna help. Okay, gosh, if the world would only see this. That's why it's so important, this book. You got to shift it. Yes, you had a question?
Can we say something when you're in the middle of your
Yeah.
Okay. Can we do this, the same thing with how the world is now portraying Israel and the Jews, hating us, anti-Semitism, just turn the other cheek, pray for them, and not be angry and
turning the other. I think.
I
don't know anything enough about that.
About to do tshuva and to pray for them. I mean.
Yes,
what's
but
happening now.
really, I'm going to look at it here because you can look at it globally, and that's kind of big. Okay, that's really big. But I look at it right here as in a person's immediate environment. Okay, I don't want to go global, even though that's a noble thing, and we should do that. But let's say our focus now, just to make it easier for us, start local. Don't go too global. We can play for Kim Jin-young or whatever the heck his name is, okay, which is a good thing. It's a noble thing, because we know people are starving. It's not cool that people are starving. You don't want anybody to starve in the world. And you know something? It really is the fault of the Jews that people are starving in the world. The Chavetz Chaim said it, not me, okay? It's our fault. Because why? We're not doing what we should be doing. If we were doing what we should be doing, this stuff wouldn't happen, okay? And that's for us to look at ourselves as that, okay? The Gentiles, the solution, let's call it, to anti-Semitism, okay? The solution to anti-Semitism is really not that they should, obliterate us, okay? That's not going to be the solution. And as I spoke about all the time, in the times of Mashiach, when it will be revealed to the world, the Torah is true and everything, that the nations will be beating us up to learn Torah and do mitzvahs, okay? Physically. They'll be catching you off the street if you want to be running, okay? Running away from the lecture, right? They'll catch you. They'll get felonious, like a 6 foot tall, 5 foot wide, right, linebacker to bring you back to the lecture, to learn your quota of the day, okay? That's why you got to practice now. In other words, really, the solution would be to make sure that the Jews are learning and studying and following the mitzvahs, and that if you see Gary Cohen, in the grocery store ordering the shrimp, the goyim the Gentiles would say, "I'm sorry, we're not selling this to you." Okay, they understand that because if the Jews were following the Torah mitzvahs, wouldn't happen, right? When Solomon was in reign, there were no calamities in the world at all. Not a tornado, not a hurricane, not an earthquake. There was no famine. Everything, the world was just unbelievably smooth, okay? So that was our only very short golden era in history, okay? God willing, we should see it today, okay? Okay, so the idea really is, for if the tzaddik, so in other words, not to persecute him, okay? not to persecute, not to hate, not so in other words, don't get combative. For if the tzaddik would have merited to rectify his own ruach level of soul thoroughly and absolutely 100% in truth, then his enemies would also have been raised and rectified through the power of the tzaddik's inner work. Okay? In other words, if a person is in the growth mode and he's working on himself to grow, right? And he's sensitive to the little things inside of him, so then he doesn't need to have enemies outside of him, okay? Fighting against him, okay? That's if he does the 100% inner work. For this reason, a person needs to rectify his opponents and raise them in prayer. For that is the purest expression of the Ruach level of consciousness, okay? Because prayer that is spoken with a sincere heart and a concentrated mind, sincere is the key word today, okay? Has the power to sweeten the pure root that is hidden within that evildoer and to pull it towards the light and raise it to good. Now, we just saw a Torah today that it brings down, Rabbi Nachman, again, to quote Rabbi Nachman in Torah Beit, that brings down that the weapon of the Messiah is prayer. Okay? That will be his weapon. Okay? That through prayer, all of the enemies will cease to exist. This could give us an insight at how's prayer going to work. Okay? Because if he rectifies them, he sees these people. And that really is, if you remember the Master of Prayer, Lori, right? That at the end of the Master of Prayer, that story, they sent the Master of Prayer, who's really King David, who's really Mashiach ben David, to all of the lands. He would go to each place. He would see what their problems were, their evil inclinations were, pray, and elevate. And therefore he would heal all the situations and go from land to land to land. Okay? So, through the power of prayer, you sweeten things at their roots. This positive scenario applies to enemies that still have a trace of good within them. For in that case, they will be affected by the tzaddik's prayer and turn their lives back to good. Conversely, if they are thoroughly bad, they will cease to exist and perish completely, as the verse states, that just one shall rejoice when he sees God's vengeance. The just one shall rejoice when he sees God's vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the evil. Okay, this is kind of a hard line to go on, and there's lots to debate about that of when you can rejoice when the evil guy falls, but that's never the first reaction. Okay, and certainly the way of the righteous amongst Israel, they never want to see the bad fall. They never want to, no matter who they are or what. They are always seeking to elevate. They're always seeking for a peaceful solution. I'll tell you a great story right now. We're going to interject, okay? There was in Prague, before there was a predecessor of the Baal Shem Tov, a hidden tzaddik, the head of the 36. His name was Rabbi Adam Baal Shem. Adam Baal Shem. He was in Prague. Righteous man. He was his predecessor because he had this special book. The special book had all the secrets of Kabbalistic arts that later he was able to slip it to the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, in a hidden way, before he passed away. But while he was there in Prague, there was a king who would issue evil decrees. Of course, he had a bad counsel. He also wasn't the greatest, towards the Jews, and would issue harsh decrees against the Jews, one after the other. Rabbi Adam decided to help the Jewish people out. So what happened was the king goes to his bedchamber and he's lying, he's going to sleep, and then all of a sudden he has a dream. And in the dream, he's waging war against his enemy. And he wages battle against his enemy till finally he himself in the battle is against his enemy and he loses. What does the enemy do? They take him and put him in a very small metal box. Totally confined. He has to be standing up totally straight in a box, and there's one little hole on top where they throw food in. He is there for 6 months, sitting in there, that box. Not a pleasant experience. Finally, at the end of 6 months, somebody opens the door, and it's a Jewish person, and says, "Would you like to get out of there?" Boy, I would. Right? I'll let you out on the condition that you annul all your harsh decrees against the Jewish people. If you agree to do that, I'll let you out. Yeah, swear. Yeah. Okay, he lets them out. Of course, they still are in the middle of the enemy territory. They have to get out. So he says, we have to switch clothes so they don't suspect you. So he switches the clothes. He has different clothes on, puts clothes on them. They get in the carriage, ride away, and they're riding a 2-day journey back to Prague. As they're entering Prague, the city of Prague, the rabbi, who was really Rabbi Adam, who was the Jew who let him out of the box, says, okay, we have to cut your hair now because it's proper. And they cut his hair, cut beard. The guy had hair. Cut hair, and he had a little box, snuff box. They emptied the snuff box, and they put the hair in the snuff box, that hair, and he gave it to him. He says, for this, you will remember the promise that you made. Right? And as they pull up to the palace, right, gets out of the carriage, the king wakes up from his dream, screams to his servants, and he's up, and he's going, do you know where I just was now? For 6 months in a box? Where the heck were you? Where were you? Why would you come in to help me? Right? You were in the room the whole time. We were watching. It's only 4:30 in the morning here. You've been here the whole time. No, I haven't. Right? I was in a box for 6 months. Right? And they go, really? And all of this court was around going, it was just a dream. Let it go. Let it go. It's just a dream. Right? And he was just about to believe them, but of course what happens? He opens up the snuff box and he finds hair. And he says, get me the Rabbi of Prague now. And they go get the summon of the Rabbi of Prague. Of course, it's Rabbi Adam. And he comes and he says, now you have to keep your promise. Yes, it was true. He says, what was that dream about? So he answers him. And he says, when we dream, when we go to sleep at night, right? Our souls leave our bodies and we go up to the heavenly court. You were dragged to the heavenly court, and this was your decree, and this is what they were giving you. Every single moment of it, right? I was there, and I was able to help get you out of that evil decree that they decreed upon you, that sentence. And only on this condition. So now you have to keep your promise. And so he did keep his promise till the next time. Okay? But no. Okay? The idea really is Rabbi Adam could have been praying and cursing or something. What did he do? Right? With his prayers, able to get into a dream is like that. The Baal Shem Tov was also to get into people's dreams. And there's a later story where Rabbi Adam was able to get into the person's head while he was awake. And the guy thought it was like 7 years he was living another life. Would you believe that? Okay? But in any case, parallel universe. Okay? In any case, the idea really is not to wish evil. That's the initial reaction is it comes from God. And you have to pray. Why is this happening? Okay? And you have to pray for that person. Okay? So, we never want to seek the evil. But the tzaddik, God forbid, cannot intend for his enemies to be destroyed by his prayer for their tshuva. The tzaddik should not curse his enemy, rather he should remain silent and accept the ordeal with joy and with a good heart and refrain from reactive speech. Again, refrain from reactive speech. Refrain from reactive speech. Should I say it one more time? Okay. Reactive speech. If a person follows this advice, it will be good for him. And through this spiritually productive approach to enemies, unity is increased, both below and above. It's not just a psychological tool to get it out. This is a cosmic tool. Cosmic unity. Okay, it's a cosmic tikkun. As the sliver of good separates from its encrustations and return to its root, may Hashem's great name be magnified and sanctified. Amen. Okay, because you are fixing the Shekhinah. You're repairing creation in general. It's a bigger spiritual tikkun, not just so you can go to sleep at night. Okay? This principle of interdependency between a tzaddik and his enemy needs to be conveyed to my holy colleagues who have dedicated themselves and their lives to serving the one and to revealing his unity in the world. Life seems to contradict theory, as he's going to tell us. There's a little contradiction here. There's a Talmud. Passage in the Talmud says, a person does not incur suspicion unless he has done the thing suspected. In other words, if somebody ever suspects you of doing something in any way, no matter how slight or how big, the Talmud is saying, if you got suspected, it must be you're doing that thing. There's some smidge of you in another form or another degree of that thing. If he has not done it wholly, let's say he did not do such an act, maybe he's done it partially, in some other way, subtly, different form or different degree. And if he has not done it even partly, he has a mind to do it. Maybe it is in the recesses of his mind, such an act, such a will to do such an act. And if he has not had a mind to do it, he's seen others do it, and he enjoyed the sight of it. Okay? So there's an issue there. In other words, if people are speaking bad about you doing X and Y or whatever it is, so a person has to go through, do I actually do it? Or maybe not. Maybe partially. If not partially, maybe my mind. Okay? Or maybe not in my mind. Maybe I've seen other people do it and I enjoyed it. Okay? So it could be in some subtle degree or form I'm involved in it. If people speak bad about me, it must be I'm somewhat involved to some degree. Okay? That's how it goes. Yet, there are certainly guiltless people and impeccable tzaddikim who have been wrongly maligned and they're completely innocent. Moses being a prime example. Moshe is the prime example. And so based on this observation, Abaya, who is a 4th century Talmudic sage, qualifies the sages because what? You got to say this about Moshe? You got to say this about Moshe? Moshe, they suspected Moshe of adultery. You know that, right?
No.
They suspect, yeah. There was a whole, with the CNN interviews, psychologists, therapists, right? Bill Moyer, what is his name? Meyer, whatever his name is, right? They had all the guys, Giannis, Yambris. They had the Erev Rav interviews, papers written, this, all. Yes, they had pictures of him, right? Leaving, getting to his home a little too late. Where was he? Right? Ironclad proof. Okay? They suspected him, and of course, he's completely clean. No one could dare say such a thing of Moshe. How can you say such a thing? Okay? This only applies when it is not the slander of enemies and foes. That's where the difference is. Okay? In other words, if it's not enemies and foes saying bad about you, somebody else, some other way, so then a person has to check himself out. But where there are enemies present, we assume that it is they who spread the rumor and that it has no substance. Sorry, the other way around. In other words, if it's enemies who spread slander about you, and the person's really innocent, it's a different thing going on. In other words, Moshe, he's going to bring an example with Moshe. Okay? Moshe and other people. Okay? Who spoke slander about Moshe. But really, those people are really part of Moshe's own soul that he had to elevate. Okay? Bizarre. You're going to be shocked when we turn the page. Okay? And so we see that the holy and innocent tzaddikim are accused of sins that have never occurred to them. Not even in a previous incarnation, in a previous lifetime. And yet still slanderers falsely accuse and slander them. And this is what happened to our teacher, the divinely inspired Holy One, the light of the 7 days, the Baal Shem Tov, and his student, our teacher, Rav Dov Ber, and others like him, who people have slandered them, but they were completely innocent. Okay? So the idea here is in regards to enemies and foes, okay, that has no substance. Okay? That has no substance. If it's an enemy that speaks bad about you, and you're like totally clean, don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about there's some smidge in you. Okay? But if it's not your enemy and foes, the Talmud that we learned above, so then, well, maybe they become your enemy after that, right? Seems like, I thought I knew him. I thought he was a friend. But when they're not, like, right, innocent people, oh, I heard you, right? So, so that's that, then a person has to check himself out to see if there's a smidge in him of something. But if it's an enemy and a foe, right, then, and you're totally clean, you don't have to worry about it being a smidge in you. You don't have to totally, do an x-ray of yourself, okay? Even though the Talmud admits that it is possible to be accused of a trespass for which one is absolutely innocent, the question remains, how does this reconcile with the tenet of Hashem's absolute justice? For there's no reality apart from Hashem. Nothing happens without his approval, and all that he does is equitable. Okay? In other words, why does Hashem bring such an instance? In other words, listen, the person is totally innocent. As you can see, Moshe is totally innocent. He's totally innocent. He didn't, God forbid, anybody should even remotely even think for a second that Moshe committed adultery. And yet, why did it happen to him? That it was reported back to him that these people are saying you committed adultery. Why would Hashem, right? Everything is just. Why would such a thing happen? Why would Hashem, in his great wisdom, permit, or the heavenly court permit such a situation to occur? Okay? Yes, we understand it's impossible to understand God's ways, but there's got to be, you got to throw us a bone here, okay? Know, my brother, that the mixed multitude, this is the Kamarna Rebbe speaking, know, my brother, that the mixed multitude contained sparks of Moses, our teacher. Similarly, inside the accursed Bilam were numerous holy sparks belonging to the soul of Moshe, our teacher. Would you believe that? Bilam, as we're going to see in not this week's parsha, is Korach, but next week's parsha is Bilam, right? Who's this thoroughly wicked person. The absolute extreme of darkness is in Bilam. Yet, there's an aspect of Bilam which is really Moshe. In other words, there are certain elements where they come from the same root. Bizarre enough, okay? Except this is the side of holiness, but Bilam expressed himself as the dark Sith Lord, okay? But yet, really, and the mixed multitude, does everybody know who the mixed multitude is?
All the other people.
They call him the Eruv Rav in Hebrew.
That left.
What?
That left Egypt.
It's not clear. There's many opinions exactly who they are. Right? Some people say these were the magicians and hieroglyphic experts and the sorcerers, actually, who left Egypt. And they wanted to tag along with the winner, go with the winning team. Where were we when we were slaves? Where were you?
Were these people, did they become converts or were they not? They were just traveling?
So I'll tell you, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay? Of course they were converts, but they didn't get to sleep inside the clouds. Okay? Their accommodations was outside the clouds. They were the most instigators. We see in last week's Parsha where God finally said at the incident of the spies, 10 times you tested me. 10 times you tested me. And we know that each one of those times really instigated by the mixed multitude. Don't forget, the mixed multitude, either they were the hieroglyphic expert sorcerers or they were slaves of other peoples who were also enslaved. It wasn't just the Jews who were enslaved. There were other people who were imported. Right? And then all of a sudden the superpower is dead. The boss is dead. You were free to go. Well, where are we going to go? Right? So they might as well go with you guys. Can we tag along?
Did they get the manna too?
Good question. No. I don't doubt it. Okay? But then again, like I said, the story was Moshe says, I got to ask God. So what did God say? Does everybody know? He went and said, God, these people want to come with us. So do you know what God said? Not a good idea. No, not a good idea. No. And Moshe goes, but they'll praise you, which is the whole goal of all of humanity, is to praise you. And that really is the goal. Okay? All of humanity should praise God and have a connection. They'll have a great connection to you. I don't know. No. But Moshe still insisted, and he brought them. And they were the ones who instigated all of the problems in the Jewish people. All of them. They instigated it. They fell prey. Very much like a cell. You know, a cell in a cell structure, if you look at the cell under a microscope, human cell, and then when you have an infection, the infection will surround the cell and they find the weak spot. And then they get in. Okay? So what do these Erev Rav do as a surrounding? They found the weak of faith, and they preyed on them and influenced them. You know, got any burgers? Where are your steaks? Meat, dude.
Yeah.
I want meat.
Please
Right?
tell me these are not the converts. Seriously.
Not all the converts. They did convert, but they eventually married into the Jewish people, and they became all the self-hating Jews that you meet today. Okay? Right? And they say in our tradition that the last exile, which is now, there's many other versions who's going to be in control in the last exile, but the Erev Rav, which is basically the government. Okay, the Israeli government in terms of the system. I don't say every single person, can't say that. But there are huge instigators who aren't so crazy about Jews and Judaism. And you'll see it through their speech and their actions. Okay? These are the non-religious Jews who set up the government and basically are controlling the entire country. The entire country is really controlled by about, in my father-in-law's estimation, 300 families are controlling the entire country. Because if you control the media, you basically got them. Okay? Not so many, but these people are basically the ones who are in power. Okay? In any case, but let's go back here. These mixed multitude tagged along with Moses, and of course they caused all of the problems in the desert because they fed on the weak of faith, instigated rebellion. All the rest of the Jews, they had their issues, and that's why they all got blamed for it, and that's why we had to wander in the desert for 40 years. It was because they remained silent, and silence is agreement. Okay? While the whole thing of the golden calf was going on, not everybody sinned with the golden calf. There's only 2,000 people that fell that day. Okay? Not everybody, but yet the entire people was blamed for it because they were quiet. Silence is agreement. So when you have to make a protest, you better protest. Even if it's a verbal protest. You protest and run. Okay? Before they kill you. Okay? What?
The women didn't.
Women didn't. They didn't have the decree. Right? The women said, go you know where? You didn't take in my jewelry. As a matter of fact, they threw out a couple of dishes on the way out of the tent and then chased them out with a rolling pin, their own husband. You ain't taking my jewelry. Levi, the tribe of Levi, they weren't into it too. And they probably did their protest as well. But the rest of them didn't do the protest, and therefore they all got snagged. Okay? Who? Aaron is a whole nother case. Okay? Whole nother case, Aaron. Okay? But the point here is the mixed multitude contained sparks of Moses, our teacher. They were, right? They had sparks of him. His own soul was in them. So I can't leave him behind. Similarly, inside the accursed Bilam were numerous holy sparks belonging to the soul of Moses, our teacher. Bilam, the wicked anti-Moses. Okay? And so taught Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, in the future you will be shocked to discover how the soul of this lowly and sinister being called Bilam has transformed and produced in the course of his various incarnations, or we'll call it reincarnations, numerous holy souls, tzaddikim, righteous ones, prophets, and divinely inspired ones. Now, those who have the book, go to page 215. I'm going to read for you something real quickly. You got to go into Bilam just a little bit here in terms of, let's say, understanding reincarnations and who is who. Because that's always the most funnest thing to look at, who is who in reincarnation world, okay? Okay, so if you go to 215, there's this little line here it says that brings down from the Ari. You can just listen. Bilam is the dark, unrectified underside of Moses' soul. Bilam had two sons, Janus and Yambras. Janus and Yambras became the heads of the mixed multitude. They were there. Can you imagine Bilam, that despised, low-life, scum-sucking maggot, okay, who used to be the advisor to Paro, who advised Paro, if not, according to one version in the Zohar, to do genocide, and the other version says, no, just take all their money and oppress them. The instigator of the entire slavery, he lived a long time, Bilam, okay? And here are his two sons in the very camp. His two wicked sons followed in his footsteps, the heads of the mixed multitude. Okay, both Bilam and Moses derive from the same spiritual root called Hevel, Abel. Yeah. You know, Korach also, this week's Parsha, was an aspect of Hevel also. Okay? And the tikkun of Korach was, of course, to go down. Because in terms of the flip side, when Cain killed Abel, Abel had to be absorbed into the ground. And here was the turning of the tables to make the rectification. That here, Abel, really what happened was Korach, he was trying to fix Abel. They're both trying in a race to fix Abel. How are we going to fix Hevel? Man, it's far out, right? Who's going to be the one who's going to make the fix, the big fix? So Korach's idea was, how do we fix Hevel? Because they both come from Hevel. I'm going to fix it by becoming Cain. I'm going to bring Cain, the idea, the concept, the program of Cain into my system, and I'll be Cain, and that'll fix Abel. But of course, once he did that, he became Cain, okay? All me, and that's what Cain really is. It's super ego, and therefore he went down to make that rectification in terms of fixing Cain in that way, where Abel, when Cain killed Abel, Abel went down. Now, here it's Cain versus Abel, so to speak, and Cain goes down. Okay, but that's Korach. Here, going in terms of a different spiritual root, they both come from Hevel, whose soul split into two streams. Moses is the emblem of Abel's good inclination, while Bilam embodies the bad. The first inclination of the spark that originated in the lineage of Bilam's soul was the wicked Lavan. So Lavan was Bilam. Okay? Bilam actually was Lavan. Okay? That was the first. Okay? Lavan was the worst of the worst. Okay? In its next appearance was Bilam himself, who was the hater of Israel. Bilam's painful death, you know how Bilam died, right? No. Quidditch match. He was flying around. They knew how to fly then. What? I don't know about a broom. He was able to do some kind of levitation thing, and they shined the plate of the high priest that said Kadosh Lashem on him. That reflection nailed him, snagged him, and he went down. And the soldiers, Yeshua and the brothers, caught him, and they killed him by the sword. They had a few words to exchange beforehand, right? Okay, and then, of course, they killed him by the sword, okay? But his death, his painful death, actually purified the spark enough for it to now enter the Jewish gene pool. Here comes Bilam now into the Jewish gene pool. But he was on a low place in the gene pool. Naval. His name is Naval. Who was Naval? He was the husband of Abigail, the enemy of King David. Okay? Naval was this very rich man. And King David actually was protecting Naval from outside hoodlums who would attack him. Right? Gentiles would come riding into town, pillaging and raping. And so, but he protected that whole area and protected Naval from the bad guys to come in so they wouldn't make raids on Naval. And then when it came time for David to need, can you help me out? My soldiers need some food and stuff. Naval went, no. Okay, well, we're going to kill you. I'm going to kill you now. This is the thanks I get. Abigail loaded up some food, traveled out in the middle of the night to see King David and says, take this food, here are your provisions, please just spare us, right? So he says, I'll spare you. As a matter of fact, he ended up marrying her. I'll spare you, but I don't think about your hubby. It's just not right. Anyways, he didn't even have to go because Naval just kind of died inside his own house on his own. Okay? He just got sick and died, just dropped dead. Okay? That was his end. He had his chance and he blew it. Okay? Wasn't a great thing to do. Anyways, That's Bilam comes into this guy named Novel. From there, the spark rose higher and higher in purity and holiness. In one of these rounds, it incarnated as Barzillai, the Gileadite, who generously sustained David in a time of need. Okay? Came back and somebody who supported David. Big supporter. Okay? And in this way rectified the sin of his earlier incarnation as Naval, who did not support David. Okay? So the spark reached a further tikkun with Kimham, the son of Barzillai. I don't know who that is. Okay? So Rabbi Akiva taught that the messianic personage of Elihu, the fourth of Job's comforters, and the one whose wisdom prevailed, was carrying the soul of Bilam. In the future, people will be very surprised to discover that a soul as corrupted as Bilam was able to be redeemed. I mean, that is just bizarre. I thought there's no redemption for that guy. Okay? So if you think there's no redemption for that guy, and yet there is, okay? Don't go pointing fingers and saying there's no redemption for anybody in our generation. Okay? So while the exiles are gathered and the dead are revived, he will be shocked to behold the amazingly high and holy souls that have emerged from the dregs of impurity that incarnated as Bilam and Naval. People will marvel, how is it possible for purity of this exceptional degree to derive from material so profoundly impure? Okay, just to give you a little bit like that. Okay, but Moses, of course, he understood that. Okay? So going back here, okay, we're really out of time here. Okay? Let's just go a little bit more. Moses, the pure and transparent servant of God, was in the world for 120 years. And even with all the holy deeds and miraculous revelations that he wrought, he did not merit to angelic status and to become the Messiah. He didn't merit to be a malach, a total malach, like Enoch, Chanach, or Eliyahu, right? Highest, greatest of all the prophets. Yet, why didn't he get to evolve and be one of these angelic spirits? So many people did, right? Two, okay? There's some others who didn't die, right? But he didn't get that either. Nor did he, why not be the Mashiach? Taka, okay? He didn't. Why? So this is proof that he didn't rectify himself completely. Startling. That that time around, he didn't rectify himself completely that time around, and won't until the future. And the reason he didn't merit to this was in part because of the mixed multitude. Okay? In other words, they just needed to come back and come back and come back, and there's no way he could have fixed the mixed multitude in his lifetime. The holy sparks that were in there was just too far gone. Our godly teacher, the light of our eyes, who shines from the upper tip of Atzilut, the highest spiritual world, to the lowest and outmost point of extension, the heels of the messianic completion, Rabbi Yisrael ben Rebbe Eliezer, the Baal Shem Tov, taught us an astonishing teaching. All the accusations that Bilam and the mixed multitude leveled against Moses, for example, their outrageous suspicions that he engaged in adultery, were actually sins that they themselves, the mixed multitude, were guilty of. Yet their allegations against Moshe were also not entirely false. Why? For Bilam and the mixed multitude were actually sparks of Moshe's soul. They accused him of exactly those sins that they were guilty of. Yet, since these slanderers really were upside down and inside out sparks of Moses' soul, their accusations were, in a very roundabout way, true. Because they were really talking about themselves, their own bad traits, but they projected it onto Moshe because they were really actually part of Moshe's soul. So they were looking at their own reflection of a reflection that was a reflection of Moshe's soul. Got it? You'll be tested afterwards. Don't ask me to repeat it. Okay? And this explains how there is no reality apart from Hashem. There's no reality apart from Hashem. May He be blessed and elevated. And how everything that happens in this world, even the oppression of the innocent, is, in some mysterious way, an expression of Hashem's meticulous justice. In other words, I'm totally innocent. How can they be speaking bad about me? I've not even done any smidge of that. But you know that they're all part of you. And even though that you don't engage in that crime that they throw at you, right? Still, they are part of yours. There's part of their soul is in you, and that you need to pray for them. Okay? Yet knowing this does not take the pain away, for King David expressed his angst at bearing such a test, and the taunts of those who taunted you have fallen upon me. Okay? In other words, it still might be painful. Okay? Interestingly enough, someone taught me the definition of pain yesterday, but I don't know where it is. Okay. In any case, I'll have to share it with you another time. Remind me, text me, I'll send you back. Let me just finish this, okay? Because this is the last part of it, okay? Moses, as the soul core of the Jewish people, and by extension the world, along with his emissaries, the tzaddikim, are immersed in the labor of cultivating humility, integrity, and love and honesty. And in this way, from the inside out, they're also fixing the world. That's all they're involved in. They will succeed. The world will be rectified. As the Mishnah declares, all must be prepared for the final banquet to take place, which is the world to come. And you, this is the Kamarna Rebbe addressing his students and other tzaddikim. All right, and you, tzaddikim, through your work, though your work is hard, the benefit of being a servant of God is immeasurably sweet. You must be grateful for that and rejoice in the closeness created between you and Hashem through the light that is accessed from fulfilling his commands and performing holy meditative unifications, which you're going to get to next semester. Okay? Okay? And in every move that a person makes, if he does it in truth, to unify Hashem's name, meaning this comes from God, that's how to unify it. You connect this experience that is not so pleasant to saying this comes from God, you're already engaged in unifying God's name. Because you're connecting God to this event. Okay? Right? Which means to unite God with creation so that he manifests fully throughout the world. That person severs the flow of sustenance to the foes of illusion called the klipot, literally shells, and they cease to exist. The power of this holy work is so great that all the worlds tremble from its impact. Strengthen yourselves and take courage in Torah and prayer, reverence and love, for you shall ascend through the 13 channels of mercy. That's what we're going to do also next semester. When you enter the world to come, and no one will push you away. My brother, be strong and courageous, and Hashem, your God, will be with you. Do not fear and do not panic. Be strong and courageous, chazak ve'matz. Fortunate are you, fortunate is your portion, if you toil in Torah and truth. Be strong, chazak. Hashem will be your help. The only stipulation is the sincerity of your intention. You must direct your heart to heaven in truth and for the sake of truth, to unite Hashem with his creation in true and blessed unity. Nakuda. We have finished.